Hello, welcome to the Lost in His Own Museum podcast, episode 3, with Twig and Jim. I'm Twig.
And I am Jim. And
so this week we're doing it over Facebook Messenger. We're chatting over Facebook Messenger.
We are indeed,
So
yeah.
we're recording on each end. Because social distancing and all of that.
Absolutely. What could possibly go wrong, Phil?
I know. What could possibly go wrong? Absolutely nothing, I hope.
Absolutely.
It'll be fine.
We did one for another podcast you were part of back in the first lockdown, didn't we? And it worked like this. Yeah, absolutely. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. That.
Yeah. So this week we watched Panic Room by David Fincher.
We did, and we watched it separately. I from my panic room and Phil from his own panic room.
Yeah. Yeah. Lock the door and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like, Laura, no, you can't come in. I'm watching this film. I have to immerse myself in the experience. Locked her outside the house. She was fuming.
Dude, it's January.
Hey,
cool.
I tell you what, if I got a bolted steel door on this cinema room, it'd be one heck of a panic room.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. Yeah, nobody would ever find you. Except for the two big windows.
Yeah, they'd know exactly where I was, but I'd be having a blast of a time in there.
Yeah, you'd be all right. I think you'd be all right for a while before anybody realised.
Or anybody put the window through and came in that way, yeah.
Yeah. So it's Panic Room featuring Jodie Foster, Kristen Stewart, Jared Leto, and Forrest Whitaker.
Absolutely. And Dwight Yoakam as well.
And Dwight Yoakam, who I keep forgetting about because he wears a mask for a considerable amount of... but he is like the main... He turns out in the sort of the main bad guy.
He does really, doesn't he? Yeah, to be fair.
Yeah.
Should we do a bit of a recap on the plot in case anybody's not so sure?
Yeah, well, yeah, you go ahead.
So Jodie Foster is playing a soon-to-be divorced woman, and she's with some of her settlement money buying a house that's going to be close to her daughter's father so that they can share custody and do all of that fun stuff. And she buys this absolutely amazing house on the west side of New York, and we're talking absolute fixer-upper, but it's got the potential to be amazing. One of the things that the house has is a panic room. And the previous owner of the house was sort of a little bit worried that his family might try and pick him off, and he's got all sorts of, sort of concerns, and a very anxious person. So has this panic room put in. So Jodie Foster and co move into the house. Jodie Foster and her daughter, and then the son of the previous owner, which is Jared Leto's character, breaks in with Forrest Whitaker, who is a locksmith essentially.
Because they think that there's like $1 million hidden in a safe somewhere in this panic room. And...
Absolutely, yeah. But they think because Jared Leto's character is an absolute idiot in this, that the house is going to be vacant. And he's like, there's the quote in it, isn't there? Well, 14 days, that's 3 weeks. And he's like, what school did you go to where 14 days is 3 weeks? And it's like, business days, man, escrow. And But being an absolute lemon that he is, Jared Leto's character brings along Raoul, who is actually a serious bad guy and not just an opportunist like these two. And that sort of throws a spanner in the works when Forrest Whitaker and Jared Leto realise that Jodie Foster and... did I say Jodie Whittaker before? I might have said Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah, no, well. Yeah, because this is Panic Room starring Jodie Whittaker and Forrest Foster, yeah.
But yeah... Throw me off now. Anyway, when the Jodie that isn't Doctor Who realises that there's intruders in the house, she gets her daughter and they get into the panic room. At that point, the burglars want to call the whole thing off, but Raoul, who's the third guy that's brought along, is a much more sinister chap and decides, no, that's not the case. And it sort of goes from there, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I do like Jared Leto's character because I love this idea of like this really... the guy who seems quite professional as a criminal for the first like couple of minutes that his character's in the film, and then you realise, wow, this guy's like a complete mess. Has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, he's just a trust fund sort of snob, isn't he? He's literally grown up living off daddy's money, and then obviously daddy's died, and he's not getting the cut that he thinks he deserves. So it's literally how sheltered he's been from the real world is revealed very soon on, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's the amazing arrogance to him that they kind of play on almost immediately, where like he's it's not just the fact that he's an idiot. He's like the self-appointed leader of this operation, who obviously starts to lose control of the situation very quickly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's the thing of him having like braided hair and stuff as well, because he's supposed to sort of separate himself and look like a badass. But as it goes forward and you start to realize that he's how much of an idiot he is, it just makes him look even more stupid.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's really well done because, like exactly like you say, they introduce him, and for maybe 5-10 minutes or so, he almost seems like he's got a bit of an arrogance about him, but he knows what he's doing. And Forrest Whitaker almost seems like the reluctant one, which I suppose he is.
Yeah, he's definitely reluctant to hurt anybody, because obviously the only reason why he's taking the job in the first place is because he thinks there's going to be nobody in the house.
Yeah, and he's just after the money sort of thing, isn't it? But
yeah,
I thought that Dwight Yoakam was brilliant as Raoul, because like you say, he turns out really to be the big bad of the thing, and there's sort of like a, almost towards the end, an uneasy alliance between Jodie Foster's character Meg and Forrest Whitaker's character Burnham.
Yeah, he does sort of redeem himself. Yeah, it's an interesting film. Like I've been watching some behind the scenes stuff about it, and like some interviews with Jared Leto particularly.
Yeah.
And did you know, like David Fincher himself braided Jared Leto's hair?
I did not know that.
Yeah, apparently spent quite a lot of time in Central America, and learned how to do it. And it was Fincher's idea to have him with braided hair because of like the aforementioned. Obviously, it's the whole idea is that they want to make him look badass to begin with and completely stupid as you start to find out how inept he is. So like the thing like the braided hair makes it worse as it goes on, which I think was a great choice.
It does work really well, doesn't it? And David Fincher's one of those directors where he not only tells the story with the script that he's given, and it might sound daft to say that he tells a story visually with a film, but like it's like the visual clues and cues that he gives on the, like you say, braiding the character's hair and stuff like that, and the way that Forrest Whitaker portrays his character, you can tell that he's really reluctant as well, and you get right from the offset as well that Raoul's going to be an absolute, horrible bugger when it gets going. And there's all visual cues and clues, like the fact that Raoul's the only one that's masked up, even though they think they're breaking into an empty house.
He's the only one who's got a gun.
Yeah, he's the only one that's like armed, and it's But David Fincher does
actually doing it right.
Do you know, I really enjoyed this one, mate. I know I was saying to you before when you suggested watching it that I was keen to re-watch it, but I'd often thought this one maybe sort of like the run of David Fincher's litter, if you like. I sort of always remembered it being his weaker film. But
yeah, I suppose it is, but it's a bit like saying that like the Return of the Jedi is like the weakest Star Wars movie of the original trilogy, because it's like it's still a Star Wars movie. Like it's, you know what I mean? So it's like with I think you're right with Panic Room. I like it's certainly not one of David Fincher's best, but it's a David Fincher film. And it's really good,
I had a lot of fun with it last night, and I really, really enjoyed it. It must be probably 5 years or so since I've seen it. I picked up the DVD, and I was going to do something really daft. Then I was going to pick up the DVD and show it to the camera. But this is radio, kids, and if you can see me right now, there's a problem. But yeah, I picked up the
television for the blind.
Absolutely. Somebody should invent that.
Yeah, like radio, for example.
Yeah, somebody should do that. Television for the blind, and radio for the deaf as well might be. Yeah,
that'll be handy. Yeah,
really insensitive. We do apologise in advance. We mean absolutely no harm. But really, really enjoyed coming back to this film, and sort of almost watching it with a fresh pair of eyes. I think the last time I watched it, I can't remember whether I was with family or a group of friends. I was certainly with a group of people. And when you're socialising and you don't really necessarily take it all in, sort of thing. But it was really nice just to sit there last night, me and our lass, and watch it, and really sort of, obviously for the purposes of this, actually really pay attention to what was going on and try and notice little bits. And it was really quite gripping at moments. I never found it too tense. And I don't know about you, but like even in the moments where you were possibly supposed to be on the edge of your seat, I never felt that the stakes were that high.
Yeah, I did in places, but not like not. There was a lot of parts where I felt you were supposed to feel like that, and I sort of didn't. The one part where I really did, where I really was a little bit on edge was the setting the gas pipe on fire.
Oh yeah, that's a good scene.
Yeah.
Is that? I'm glad
That's
you
a
brought
fantastic scene. Yeah, Jared Leto was actually on fire as well. They touched it up in post, but he did the stunt himself.
Well done, that man. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair play to him.
Do you know Laura commented on the CGI actually of all things? She's like, do you know that's a bit ropey in parts? It hadn't aged well. But
Yeah, some of it-
like when it
the
goes
scene-
up the vent and stuff.
Yeah, there's the couple of like the big long single shot scenes, like the money shot
Yeah,
at the beginning where it's like where they're breaking into the house and they've got the camera sort of panning round each room in what's supposed to look like a single shot. But there's bits where you're like, come on, like how stupid do you think I am? So, like when it goes through the handle of the coffee pot and you're like, what?
yeah. No, come off.
It looked cool, but it's like it looks cool in like 1999, not now. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, this film is early 2000s, but it does really have that whole flavour of 90s action movie, doesn't it?
yeah, I mean, with it being a bottle movie as well, because the whole thing takes place in a single location, which I think is with the exception of the first and the last scene where they're sitting on the bench in the park. But yeah, I do like that. Like I like bottle episodes of like TV shows and stuff. I'm a big fan of that.
It's
'cause I
an
think
interesting
really clever what you
concept.
can do with it.
Yeah, definitely an interesting concept because you've really got to have compelling characters to keep you intrigued, haven't you? Because there's nothing else to go on. And I thought Kristen Stewart did okay in this because this was one of her early roles, wasn't it?
She was really good. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, pre-Twilight and everything. To be fair, though, I know she gets a lot of flack for those films, and those films are horrible.
Yeah.
Well,
But she's
do you know
quite
what?
good in them.
Well, I can't speak for all of them. I've seen one of the like Breaking Dawn Part 6 or whatever it is, Breaking Wind or whatever it's called.
Breaking Wind.
But I've seen one of them because the mother-in-law's quite a big fan of them.
Okay.
And one was on a couple of Christmases ago. And so it's one of them where you sat in somebody's house and you've got to, this is great. Oh yeah, loving it.
With it.
Yeah, loving it, Ruth. Yeah, cracking film. No, not at all. And then when the first one came out, my mate got it on DVD, and he says, "Oh, you'll love this. You'll absolutely love this," and raved about it, and made me think that it was going to maybe be like the next Harry Potter or that sort of thing, like big book franchise turned into a sort of teenage coming of age sort of whatever. And
Yeah, I mean that's certainly what it was sort of sold as, I think.
yeah, and I got 15 minutes into the DVD and was like, "What is this shite?" And turned it off. So I've seen one and a smidge of some Twilight movies, and that's what I'm basing my review on. So, folks out there,
I've seen all of them. Like,
oh mate,
I binged them a couple of years ago. I had flu, and I was like, I'd seen the first.
Did you
one,
want to make yourself feel worse?
I don't really know what I was thinking. I think at the time it was like I feel like I didn't give these movies a proper a chance. Like I didn't. I sort of felt guilty that I've panned them and I've never seen them. So I was like, yeah, go on. And there's bits of them that I sort of enjoyed, and I think it was partly for me. It's because I love vampire stories. Generally, and big fan of the Lost Boys, and
That's a good film.
And there's some really classic vampire films that I'm really into, and I love that sort of that folklore of it. Like the mixture of like vampires and werewolves and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a go, but like on that level, I was really disappointed by them. Like as supernatural fiction, it's just awful. Like it's really bad. Because I sort of feel like the supernatural element of it doesn't really like isn't really that necessary for the story. Do you know what I mean? Like it could have just as easily have been like normal teenagers.
Yeah. But speaking of normal teenagers, Kristen Stewart is one in this film.
Sorry, we went on a bit of a tangent there.
We did indeed, yeah. And again, poking fun, no harm intended. If you enjoy those films, more power to you. But yeah, no, she's really good, and I liked the fact that they introduced the stakes that she was diabetic as well. Because
that was really interesting.
They needed to obviously have a reason for them to just come out of that room, because otherwise they just wouldn't, would they?
It's got to create some like urgency somewhere in there, you know. And
yeah. And you could see it coming a mile off that Forrest Whitaker's character was going to be the one having the redeeming arc, and it was sort of like he'd be the one to save her. And I thought it was brilliant when Dwight Yoakam's character Raoul got his fingers caught in the mechanic ceiling. And it was like, that would sting. But
it's got to hurt.
Yeah, he just looked like a character you wouldn't mess with, didn't he? Don't you think he looked like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was thinking a bit like Tom Selleck and Quigley Down Under, except without the moustache.
Nah, I definitely got a
that
Buffalo
sort of job.
Yeah, definitely got a Buffalo Bill vibe from it. It puts the lotion on its fingers, or else it gets the door again. That was more Forrest Gump than it was Buffalo Bill, wasn't it? Oh, Jenny.
It was a little, yeah.
Jenny, put the lotion on.
Oh, God.
Welcome to Lost in His Own Museum After Dark.
Oh no, I feel bad. I can't rip on Forrest Gump because I love it so much.
It's such a good film.
It's one of those films. Yeah,
it's such a beautiful film. And,
so what are we thinking about Panic Room then? Is that going?
Yeah, I really liked it, and I think on the whole, because of I think it's part of David Fincher's filmography, and he's such a talented filmmaker. I think it would be included as part of a collective. If this were, Joe Bloggs' directorial debut, and one of these sort of, not that there's anything wrong with them, I've dozens of them myself, but like flash in the pan directors that make a by the numbers action thriller sort of thing, I probably wouldn't put it in the museum. But because it's part of such a talented filmmaker's collective works, I think on that grounds it needs to go in. I think the performances were pretty good. I tell you one thing, just going back to the plot and the thoughts of the film again, I felt really bad for Forrest Whitaker's character at the end, because obviously Jared Leto, his character arc is resolved rather quickly towards the end of the second act, isn't it? And then obviously Raoul meets his match as well, which means that Forrest Whitaker, who's the only one that didn't really want to be there, is the one that gets left to take all the blame for everything.
Yeah, he's sort of wanting to get away as well, and then, spoiler alert,
he doesn't.
He doesn't. I thought that was a shame.
I quite because they hint at the fact that he's obviously got sort of family troubles, and that's why he's normally a good guy on the straight and narrow, but he's come into some family issues and some obviously financial issues, and you kind of almost wish, in a way, that Jodie Foster would be sort of like, well, it's not our money, go on, sort of bugger off before the cops get here. Sort of, I kind of wish there was that moment at the end, sort of thing. But I suppose somebody has to take the rap for it, don't they?
Yeah, I guess so.
But do you know, like I say, as part of a collective, I would put it in the museum. What about you?
Yeah, I think that one. I agree with you. I think that deserves to go in the museum. But I think it's one of those that if it had been like a flash in the pan director, it would have been interesting to watch it as something quite good by a flash in the pan director. But to me, it's got a bit of that. It would feel a little bit like have you seen In Time?
I haven't. No, it's the Timberlake and Amanda Seyfried, isn't it? That one.
Yeah, and
I haven't seen it, but it's,
in a couple of those.
Yeah, it's they've got clocks in their arm, haven't they? And it's that sort of whole. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailers. It looks all right.
It's one of those that's like it's a really good concept. Like it's such a an interesting concept for a film with like so much potential. You know, like a really interesting premise, but really poor execution. But it was one of those, because it was like I forget who directed it now. It was someone who hasn't done a right lot else, but that's what it feels like. You know, that sort of really good concept for a movie, but just not. It could have been executed better. Whereas, like, because with David Fincher's sort of stylistic approach to it, it works. Like, you know, the single location. When they built the set, they took half the side of the building off, so that they could accommodate for camera movements.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot. You cannot absolutely knock the fact that it's been beautifully shot, and the whole thing feels very much like, you know, you're watching a David Fincher movie. It just feels a little bit dialed back. Yeah, I mean, I think it was his first big project after Fight Club, and I think Fight Club just, I think, knocked the wind out of him a little bit. Yeah, maybe he wanted something a bit of a safe bet, maybe. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it was critically quite received very well. Oh yeah, I can see why as well. Yeah, certainly better than Fight Club was at the time. Yeah, Fight Club's really come into its. I mean, Fight Club's a fantastic movie, but it's really come into its own in later years, hasn't it? And I don't know if you could call it a cult following, because I think it's just universally accepted that it's a good film now. But it certainly went through cult status and elevated past that, didn't it? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Fight Club's quite possibly my favourite movie of all time. And I think it's absolutely incredible. And I think David Fincher's approach to that was spectacular. You know, even without taking the cast into account, because obviously the thing with Fight Club is it's Edward Norton, Brad Pitt, and Helena Bonham Carter, which is that is a perfect top three for for a movie cast. Oh, they're fantastic, aren't they? I mean, to be fair though, we've talked about that. There's some absolute A game in this, though, isn't there? I mean, Jodie Foster in the 90s was a regular leading lady in things, and obviously I've got a lot of time for Jodie Foster. I think she's brilliant. Oh, absolutely. I mean, my favourite performance of hers is always going to be Silence of the Lambs, and I just think it's an absolute shame she never got to do the sequel. But I mean, Forest Whitaker's one of those. Yeah, sorry. So Forest Whitaker's he's really good at what he does, and he's not quite a that guy, because he's a lot more well known than a that guy. But he sort of almost falls into that category for me. Like when you see him, it's like, it's Forest Whitaker, but it's like the next level up, isn't it? Sort of thing. It's like, do you know what I mean? He's sort of like, he's top tier supporting cast, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, my thing with Forest Whitaker is he's one of these actors that you don't see very often, but when you do, he's really good. Yeah. You know, he's done stuff like The Last King of Scotland, which was phenomenal. Like that. That was fantastic, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, him and James McAvoy together, brilliant. But I would say this one deserves to go in the museum. Absolutely. Would you say that we have chosen wisely? I would say you have chosen wisely. Well, so that 6 out of 10, maybe a 7. Yeah, I'm going to go 6.5. I think with that, if we were to give it an out of 10, I think it works well as obviously a standalone piece as it is, and when you're sort of watching it as part of David Fincher's filmography, it doesn't feel like it's all of a sudden really out of left field or a miss for him sort of thing. And right, enjoyed it. Yeah. Okay, so moving on a little bit, should we do a jingle? We'll do a little jingle. Yeah, let's do a jingle. Okay. So, JT, you asked the internet this week if you could swap out two characters. No, wait. Yes, sorry. You asked the internet this week if you could swap out two characters in a film, which two and why? So, like two lead characters. Yeah, with two lead characters from another film. Do you know what? I didn't do it intentionally, but I guess my question was a little bit vague, and we got some varied responses. And that's actually brilliant, folks. So thank you for that. I was sort of thinking, say, if you had character A in film A and then character B in film B, if you could swap them, and what would that character be like in another universe? And what sort of prompted the thought was when me and you were having a bit of banter over Twitter the other day and talking about putting Ferris Bueller into Crocodile Dundee. And vice versa, which obviously just wouldn't. It just wouldn't work, would it? It'd be so stupid.
It'd be ridiculous.
So,
Part of me thinks it'd be really funny though.
But yeah,
in either direction.
Absolutely. Well, our friend and musical acquaintance Joe wrote in. And he writes,
John Travolta and Nicolas Cage in Face Off,
but swapping them round in Face Off. So at first you laugh and you think, right, okay, so it's going to be the same movie, but actually, no, it's not.
No, it's not. It's really
because
not.
that film's not played for laughs with Nick Cage as the bad guy, but it's certainly more tongue in cheek and comedic than it would be if John Travolta was doing the 90s John Travolta, where he's having that bit of a comeback, and he's sort of like golden years sort of thing. He's done Pulp Fiction, and he's done a few other projects that have cemented him as actually in his 40s and 50s or whatever he can do. Some of these action and drama movies. If he was the bad guy, and then Nick Cage was sort of playing the wacky but lovable father, that'd be a really dark movie.
I think it would be a lot darker. It would certainly be weirder the other way around. I mean, because it's basically it's Nicolas Cage playing John Travolta playing John Travolta's character in the film, and vice versa. So it's like,
they're still having to
in the other direction.
Yeah, they're still having to imitate one another, but it's that whole Nick Cage playing the terrorist, and he's playing Castor Troy, and he's got that whole sort of that whole wacky zany Nicolas Cage thing about him that
see anything you like.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to take his face off. We're doing the hand movements. If you
you can't see it, but we're doing it
again. If you can see, there's something concerning going on. But so he's got all that, and he's got the wacky zany sort of thing. And at the start of Face Off, Travolta, when he's trying to pretend to be him, he's really struggling at first when he's in the prison, when he sort of, causes a bit of bother, doesn't he? To sort of try and convince the brother that he is who he says he is, and that it's not a plant or anything. And you can see him struggling with it, and then sort of leaning into it. Whereas the other way around, obviously, Nick Cage just has an absolute blast, doesn't he? But if you put Travolta in that role and had him be a terrorist, I think that he could do a reasonable job. Not like an A-grade Oscar-winning, but a reasonable job at being a really dark, sinister bugger.
And then it's sort of did you see Broken Arrow?
I have done a long, long time ago, and I can't really remember much about it. It's Christian Slater as well with him, isn't it? Christian
Slater's the good guy, and then John Travolta's the nasty. And he does it quite well in that. Like he not on a Castor Troy sort of level. He's not like wacky and like scary, like psycho scary and weird. But he's not far off that. Like I think if he took that same energy into Face Off, I think it wouldn't be too far removed from what he has the ability to do.
I think as well, if we bring it back to Nick Cage for a minute, that it'd be really interesting because Nick Cage can give some really good dramatic performances.
Yeah.
And I think if you swapped this round, you'd have to change the tone of the film and make it a lot darker and a lot more sinister than it is, and almost sort of forget about the whole bordering on sci-fi element with the whole swapping of faces bit, and really just lean into the character study of the two guys.
Yeah.
We're sat here analysing Face Off. What have we become?
I would quite like to see it directed by somebody else other than John Woo. Like, a little bit less sort of slow motion doves. There's always doves. Why is there always doves?
Well, every director has a trademark.
Yeah, I suppose so. But that's a really specific
Tarantino
one.
Tarantino always gets Sam Jackson and Uma Thurman's feet in there somewhere. And John Glenn, who did the James Bond franchise, he had birds as a calling card as well. Next time you watch watch any Roger Moore or Tim Dalton Bond film, and there's always a scene where Bond gets startled by birds.
Okay. Why have I never noticed that before? That's really weird.
It's usually about two-thirds of the way into the film as well. It's always around the same. But anyway, So yeah, I think that swapping those two round in the same film would make for an interesting watch. Did we get any other suggestions that are worth having a natter about?
There's one one that Laura asked us. I can't really speak to this one because I haven't seen the film, but switching the guys from 21 Jump Street with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black.
So, Jump Street, the whole idea is that the guys are youthful looking enough that they can go back to high school and take their senior year, or what would be our end of sixth form again.
I can already see this with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, to bust a drugs ring. And obviously Men in Black's Men in Black. So the guys in Jump Street would probably be quite funny in a Men in Black movie. It's funny actually that she mentioned it, because one of the plans before they did Men in Black International or whatever it was, the Chris
Chris Hemsworth, and
Liam Neeson and no, neither have I. I've not heard great things. So it's one of them I keep putting off because I love the trilogy of the original ones. But one of the plans for Jump Street 3 before they shelved it was going to be to cross over with Men in Black because the same people own the copyright.
Okay.
So we might have actually seen something like that at once upon a time. Anyway,
that would have been fun.
I don't know. I get the only way that they could make that work is if they put Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith into the school as teachers.
Yeah, I think so.
But then it kind of loses the whole... Because the whole point of Jump Street is that these guys are undercover cops that are meant to go and make friends with the kids they know are selling this deadly drug sort of thing. So, I just can't see Tommy Lee Jones at a cool kids party, pass me a beer, son, It's just...
It's what... No, I don't know. I think that would be funnier though, because that's that was the thing. It's like it's. I think Will Smith could probably could maybe have got away with it 10 years ago, maybe not now. But Tommy Lee Jones,
they could do a Gemini Man and take like 20 years off him digitally, just like smooth him over.
I think Tommy Lee Jones would be really funny because it would be like that. I don't even know what film it's from because I haven't seen it, but the meme of Steve Buscemi with the skateboard. Like, hello, fellow kids. Like, Tommy Lee Jones would do that really well.
Oh, I don't know why you.
The fact that it was so obvious would be even funnier.
I can't do a Mr. Burns impression to save my life. But do you remember the episode Who Shot Mr. Burns, where they discover the oil in The Simpsons?
Yeah.
And the school discover it, and Burns dresses up as Jimbo the bully, and he's like, "Ahoy, hoy, Dean! Me and my fourth form chums." Yeah, my fourth form chums and I had, heard that you'd struck oil and thought you should turn it over to the local energy concern, eh? Just, like, release the hounds.
Which episode is it with the social security number? Not 2. Damn Roosevelt.
I love it. Yeah.
Laura
Simpson
also said...
Yeah.
So, what?
I was just going to make another Burns joke. I was going to... Simpson, how old do you think I am? I don't know, 106? No, I'm only 91.
Laura also said the guys from Ghostbusters and The Hangover.
So, your lads in The Hangover, put them in the Ghostbusters and we're fucked.
Yeah, but the other way around.
But the other way around would be brilliant. So put the Ghostbusters, put the Ghostbusters in The Hangover. Who's getting lost? So out of the four of them, one of them is lost for 3/4 of the film. So which Ghostbuster is expendable? So for me, my money's got to be on Egon.
Yeah, probably.
Egon needs to have had a wild night because you can't lose Bill Murray, because Bill Murray is the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, you
And
can't.
I know
you can't
Dan
lose Dan
Aykroyd
Aykroyd.
wishes. Yeah, I'm gonna say I know Dan Aykroyd wishes it were different, but Bill Murray is the Ghostbusters. And Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson play off each other so well. Not that Harold Ramis, God rest him, didn't, but Harold Ramis is not the straight man in there of that comedic duo, isn't he? And I suppose in a way Justin Bartha in The Hangover is the straight man of that group. In terms of, you know, obviously Bradley Cooper's got his comedic moments, and then Stu the dentist, and then obviously is it Alan or John or whoever Zach Galifianakis plays in there. It's Alan, and obviously he's the wacky zany one. So I reckon that the wacky zany one would be Bill Murray. Bill Murray would just be the complete and utter out there and would have a blast with it. Dan Aykroyd would probably be the dentist guy, constantly anxious, sort of, and then Ernie Hudson would probably fit into the role of Bradley Cooper, sort of like the cool, easygoing, because he does that in Ghostbusters, doesn't he? Because it's like Bill Murray's sort of like past caring, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis are there trying to explain to William Atherton's character Walter Peck, and they're sort of saying, no, there's ghosts and there's a river of slime, and I'm confusing the two films there, guys. But you know, there's all this going on, and whatever the paranormal activity is, and they're getting nowhere fast. And then Ernie sort of pipes up and goes, "No, listen, think of it this way," and sort of gives a really cool explanation as to what's. So I don't think the guys in The Hangover going into Ghostbusters land would work.
But the other way around, I think it would be.
But
really
the
funny.
other way around would be superb.
Yeah, and like funnier than The Hangover. In fact, I would say.
Oh God, yeah.
Like,
well, the Hangover movies get worse as they go. Have you seen the second and the third one?
No, I've only watched the first one.
No, well, second one's all right. You know, like sometimes where they do these cash grab follow-up sequels and they're passable.
Yeah.
That's what the second one is. Like, it retreads all the same jokes, adds a couple of new laughs in there for, you know, get your money's worth sort of thing. But then the third one, they completely veer off and try and make it like almost like a heist sort of kidnapping movie. And sort of forget to make it funny, but it's still meant to be a comedy, and it didn't. I don't think it did well critically. Any more on that list, mate?
Just the one. Catherine says Neo and Trinity from The Matrix with 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh dear.
No, just neither way around would work.
That's my mother-in-law, folks.
Right.
So she goes by Catherine online, but she's Ruth.
Right.
Yeah, Ruth. I don't really know how I could answer that, to be fair, because I haven't seen 50 Shades of Grey. There's a fantastic video. If you want to see other people though doing 50 Shades of Grey, there's a fantastic video on the internet. And Phil, you're looking worried, mate. Don't worry, it's not that kind of video.
Right.
But there's an impression. Yeah. There's it's Lost in His Own Museum After Dark, episode 2. But no, there's a video of a guy called Brock Baker, who's one of the guys who comes and does some of like the incidental voices on Family Guy, and you know, like when they get Morgan Freeman in, and or they get a celebrity like and they get a voice actor in to do a parody. Well, he's read passages from 50 Shades of Grey as famous actors and characters from stage and screen, and it's brilliant. And there's a bit where Daffy Duck's reading some really explicit stuff, and then there's one where Arnold Schwarzenegger's going on about oral sex, and it's just hilarious. But the guy's impressions are bob on. So if you are so inclined as to see anybody else do 50 Shades, that is where I would direct your attention.
I think the Neo and Trinity in 50 Shades could work if they brought in like story elements from The Matrix.
Oh dear.
You know what I mean? Like if the story was like half and half.
What is the story for 50 Shades though?
There isn't one.
I know it started out as Twilight fan fiction, and then it's just porn, isn't it? Basically,
more or less. Go on to IMDb and look up a synopsis of 50 Shades if you haven't seen it or haven't heard of it because you've been living in a cave on Mars.
There's a joke in there, isn't there, about the all the pieces are there. Just got to put it together. A joke about the red pill and the blue pill.
Oh yeah, there's got a really horrible joke.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what would your one of these be then? Your kind of, if you could swap two characters.
Do you know that's I'd not really given it much thought, to be fair, because I thought some of the suggestions that we got. I'm just trying. You put me on the spot now.
I haven't either. That's why I let you go first. Because I'm thinking.
Thanks for that, man. Well, I shall just consult the wall of films. You're
surrounded by DVDs, so it's cheating.
I am indeed. Yeah, I don't know. I'd quite like to see something like maybe John McClane in a zombie film.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, something like that, or I don't know. For that to work, you've got to take characters that don't belong and put them somewhere. That's, like the Addams Family in the Brady Bunch or something like that, and that sort of thing. I'm just trying to sort of think. You've stumped me there, mate.
I'd like to see Indiana Jones in a Bond movie. Like any given Bond movie, like, but not one too obvious. Not like Live and Let Die is too obvious.
Fair enough.
Like not stuff that Indiana Jones would do anyway. Man with the Golden Gun's probably too obvious as well, because
Man with the Golden Gun
would be a great villain in an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, he would, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Indy in which Bond film now? I mean, it's gonna have to be one of the really straight played ones, isn't it? Like From Russia or like. Oh, it would be hilarious to see Harrison Ford doing the whole yellow ski suit Union Jack jump off the, whatever ski slope it is, at the beginning of The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah,
England needs me, honey.
Yeah, that'll be class.
Yeah. But Indy, I need you. I've got to get it back to the museum.
It belongs to Dr. No. Dr. No is dead, and so are all of his grandchildren.
Do you expect me to talk? No, I expect you to follow the museum rules.
So that sort of answers...
Sean Connery's. Sean Connery's in there as well, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'll be brilliant. That'll be really funny. Like, I'd like to see him
come
for
the
in as
Holy
like
Grail. You're joking.
I'd like to see Indiana Jones come in as like a, like an American ally to James Bond,
like a Felix Leiter
type character. Yeah. But he is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if he was in the CIA, he'd be Jack Ryan. So it's like,
yeah, they're good movies as well. I tell you what. Do you know what, folks? We had so many audience suggestions for that one that I thought that we'd just take the time to debate that one. But we'll bring that back as a segment. And I'm actually gonna. I think I've challenged you to do the same, Phil. Let's each for an episode later in the series bring each other a pitch of taking a lead character from a franchise and putting them into something else. And, and bring a pitch as to how you make that work.
Right. Yeah, I'm all over that.
And then what we'll do, guys, is through some form of social media, we'll ask you guys to comment whose was the funniest pitch.
Yeah.
And then
I'm definitely up for this.
Yeah, then the winner gets the respect of the unknown masses on the internet.
Should we
trophies
in
the mail? Yeah, let's do some questions.
Let's do some questions because we've got loads this week.
We have got
let's
loads.
Have a question jingle. Little question jingle.
Question jingle.
Question jingle. But Scotcha.
The way you said it just then, it sounded more like when Tommy Lee Jones is after Harrison Ford in The Fugitive and he finds him at the St. Patrick's Parade. Kimmel!
Kimmel! Yeah, it's the janitor from Scrubs on the train as well, isn't it? Kimmel!
Yeah, at the end. Kimmel!
So we've got loads of questions this week. We've got 2 from Will, as usual, because Will loves asking us questions.
Will's
hi, Will.
a champ.
Thank you for listening. Yeah, Will's a good mate of ours. He's a good, big fan of the podcast. So cheers for that. Will says, "What's the best worst movie?" So presumably so bad it's good.
My answer for this is probably quite an obvious one, but it's The Room with Tommy Wiseau. It's fantastic. Have you seen it yet?
No, I still haven't seen it. No, because we've been talking about watching it together for ages.
We're gonna have to as soon as it's safe. We're gonna have to have a movie night. I'm gonna have to subject you to this. So the Room. It's this guy Tommy Wiseau. He plays Johnny, and he's in a relationship with a girl called Lisa, and then his best friend Mark. Oh, hi Mark, and his best buddy ends up sleeping with Lisa, and then it's the whole fallout of that. Now, this guy, Tommy Wiseau, he's made a load of money. Nobody knows how. He's not revealed publicly how he's made, but literally millions of dollars. And he's originally from Eastern Europe and then moved over to the States to try and become an actor. Right. But because he can self-finance, he had this absolute atrocity made. And he went into it wanting to make a serious romantic drama.
Right.
And then when it got released, it got critically panned. And so he sort of quickly changed his tune and went, oh, no, it's a black comedy. But it is the biggest piece of crap I've ever sat through. But you can't take your eyes off it. And it's so quotable. And it's just so bad that I can't do a review that will give it justice. You just need to sit down. But literally, the other guy who was in it, a guy called, I think it's Greg Sestero or something like. I could be pronouncing his surname wrong. Apologies if I am. Not that he's listening. Actually, we're having him on as a guest next week. That's how much work these guys get. But he plays Mark in it, and he went on to write a book about the making of the film and just how ludicrous the whole thing was. And then they turned that book into the film The Disaster Artist that James and Dave Franco did a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
And that in and of itself is a really good sort of comedic telling of the making of the film, and there's loads of stuff that they've left out of that didn't make it from the book, and at the end it shows you like scene to scene comparisons of things, and it's so bad it comes back round as good again, and absolutely hilarious sort of stuff.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch The Disaster Artist for ages. It looks amazing.
I would suggest watching The Room first because it'll spoil your enjoyment of The Room.
Okay.
But I think you'll get more out of Disaster Artist if you've seen Room first.
Oh, fair enough. I'm just trying to think best worst movie. It's probably going to be something animated for me. I think the one that I was thinking of was it's not an obscure one because Johnny Depp's in it. But it's an animated. I think it was DreamWorks called Rango.
Oh, the lizard.
It's about a chameleon that falls off a. He's driving through the desert with he's in a case on the back of this truck, and the truck goes over a speed bump and he falls off, and ends up this chameleon played by Johnny Depp ends up wandering about in the desert, and it's one of those. It's I think it is supposed to be a kids movie, obviously, but it's there's so many not adult themes hidden, but the Shrek type thing.
Yeah. Do you think he's compensating for something? that sort of thing. Yeah.
And he ends up in this little Wild West town, populated by little animals. And I remember I'd had a couple of beers the first time I watched it, and I remember thinking, what this is the most surreal, weird thing I've ever seen in my life. But it was so funny. It was absolutely hilarious. But such a crap film, really, when you think about the core premise of it.
Well, there's a few films like that. I mean, there's quite a few bad films I enjoy. We briefly mentioned it on one of the episodes before when we were talking about Michael Caine, but I really have a soft spot for Jaws 3 and 4. And they're appallingly bad. They're so bad. Jaws 3, they went with the whole 3D, with the whole sort of red and blue glasses sort of thing for it. And there's god-awful effects in there. And then, obviously, the story's not cracking either, that Jaws invades Marine World or whatever it is. And then the fourth one's even more ridiculous. The family decide they're going to go and have a Caribbean holiday to get away from it all, and the son or whatever of the original shark, so they say in the film, has swum out to the Caribbean to exact revenge. You just see, it's just like, literally, it's like, and a character actually says that. It's like, well, he's come to exact his revenge. And it's like, no, mate, come off it. And it's like, Michael Caine's in it, and even Michael Caine can't save it. And when Michael Caine can't save your film, that's a bad film, but I still love it.
You've got a problem, haven't you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love stuff like that. What's a terrible film that you don't like that's just so bad you've been like, good Lord, that was shocking?
Well, I mean... there's got to be a few sequels in there.
Ghost Rider 2's mine.
Ghost Rider 2 was awful. It was so bad. Iron Man 3 as well is one of mine.
I quite liked Iron Man 3, to be fair. But fair play. That can be one of mine that I like. Because it is critically panned, to be fair. But I quite liked that it evoked a lot of the... Because it's Shane Black that did it, who had a lot to do with Lethal Weapon and that sort of stuff. And he does... There's a lot of similarities to Riggs and Murtaugh's relationship in Iron Man 3 with the way that Stark and Rhodey play off each other, but that's a whole other discussion for another time.
We'll have to watch Iron Man 3 again, we'll go for that. So, Will's other one was which villain kind of had a point?
I've got 3 for this.
Yeah. So,
my first one, the one that... I'll be honest, Will, I had one that came to mind straight away. I'll get to it in a second, and then I sort of looked up a few other famous movie villains and sort of thought, right, what's the goal, and how much of a point would they have in the real world? So the first one is Magneto.
I'd agree with that.
Because when you take away all the superpowers bit, it's a whole sort of like equal rights movement.
Yeah.
And the only reason they're doing what they're doing is because they're not... Well, and that's the thing. That's what makes them a villain, is because they're not so peacefully protesting their injustice.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that they're a villain, because obviously Xavier and all the X-Men do it the right way. And so it's that. So that's what makes him a villain, but he does have a point. And then the other one... sorry, I said I had 3, but there's 2. Sorry, the other one is oh no, sorry, I remembered my third one. Sorry, I'm forgetting myself. My second one is Fletcher from Whiplash.
Okay.
Again, he's an absolute arse, but it's sort of like does the means justify the end?
Yeah, like when he's explaining the whole thing about like. He's sitting talking to him in the bar about Joe Jones throwing a symbol at Charlie Parker's head and almost decapitating him, and like, there's no 2 words worse in the English language than good job. And like, when he explains it, it kind of makes sense, but the execution is particularly like when you add it on to what he does at the end of the film, which is just petty bitterness, really, because he deliberately like.
So that was the bit that had me debating that one sort of with myself, was sort of like being a really harsh critic, a fierce to the point where there's no borderline, it is abusive teacher sort of thing. It's obviously by no means condonable, and obviously these people are still villains, but we're just trying to argue their point of view. But that works. But like you said, that end scene kind of undoes it.
Yeah, the thing that's always thrown me with that was because the end scene, like, obviously there's the thing where he storms off stage and he comes back, or like Miles Teller, like, he realizes it's all fallen to bits, and it's like, look, Fletcher's sacrificed his career because like he doesn't know that Miles Teller's going to do that. He thinks he's just going to take off, and that's it. Like, because there's the argument of like, oh yeah, he was trying to bring out a really good performance with him out of him at the end of the film, but like he didn't know he was going to do that. Fletcher's thing is he's sacrificed, because this whole thing makes him look like an idiot, because he's brought out a jazz band on stage that have played appallingly badly, in front of, like,
jazz.
jazz in front of people that sign artists for Blue Note and stuff like that, and you're like, he's sacrificed his career just to get back at this kid for getting him fired from his job.
Yeah, so
which is
like,
so
right,
petty.
My first gig's gone down the pan. Right, okay. So
Yeah.
my second gig's been a conductor in the jazz halls. Let's see if I can cock that up as well.
Yeah, by exactly the same means, just generally being a dick. Like,
Yeah,
but yeah, I do see your point with that.
absolutely. Now, my third one's just it's a comedy one, really, because I thought I'd go for something a bit more light-hearted, because, obviously with that one you can debate the ethics of teaching all day, and obviously the Magneto one is... it's a conversation, really. If you're gonna get into the politics of that, it's a conversation not for a light-hearted podcast.
Yeah, fair enough.
But this one is, now don't get me wrong, I'm on Ferris's side,
All right.
but the head teacher in Ferris Bueller,
Yeah, I know.
because he's the antagonist of the film, isn't he? He's not necessarily the villain, but he is the antagonist, and all he's trying to do is do his job. And then Ferris has been a little shit and
Deliberately winding him up.
Yeah, deliberately winding him up, and it's like, oh, Rudy. And
Rudy,
he's got all that. By God, I want to have a word with you. Actually, no, we'll get together. We'll do lunch.
I want Sloan outside the school in 5 minutes by herself.
Oh, so that's how it is in that family. But Ferris does that, and he gets Cameron's ill, and he goes and gets him out, and then he steals Cameron's dad's antique car. And, literally, it's like Ferris, the guy doesn't drive it; he just wipes it down with a diaper. You know what I mean? It's like literally the guy's pride and joy.
Like, Ferris Bueller is a dick. Like, that's the whole the whole thing of that film.
Literally, he ruined so many people's lives that day.
Yeah.
But obviously, and I feel bad defending that character, because in real life the actor that played him is a deplorable human being.
Yeah.
But if we're just strictly talking about the character, his villain's only trying to do his job, which is to keep the kid in school so that he doesn't fail.
I suppose so.
It's one of them where it's funny to watch him. It's like when he's in the bar and he's like, Bueller, your ass is mine, and then the last turns round and clouts him one. Dog ravages him a new one, and then he's sat next to Lass on bus. Is it a lollipop or chewing gum or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And he's you can't help but sort of, as you get older, sort of thing, like, even though it's still hilarious what happens to him, feel sorry for him. So there you go. They're my three villains, if you like, that I thought had a point.
Okay. I
What are
think
yours?
with me, I've got two for this. I've got a really serious one and a funny one, but like, the Joker in The Dark Knight, to me, sort of has something, because it's just that absolute anarchy and chaos for the sake of, like, tearing the world apart and building it again, or not even necessarily building it again, just tearing the world apart. Like, to me, it's he's one of those characters where, like, anybody in the world is only one psychological breakdown away from that happening.
The quote is one bad day away.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like,
that's the quote, isn't it, that they wrote about it? I think it's it's not The Long Halloween, it's Killing Joke.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting one, and I don't think the Joker's overall plan in Dark Knight is particularly cracking. I would say Harvey Dent is more a compelling villain who kind of has a point in that film. Joker has, I get what you're getting at, because Joker has pockets of things where you say it and it's like, okay, I can see it. If you force it to, and if you look at it from this perspective and don't take into there's some of that sort of stuff. But that's the whole idea. Is I think on a certain level, you're supposed to be able to sort of see where the character's coming from to be able to sort of understand the character. But Two-Face, I mean, obviously he's the reluctant villain, isn't he? He's Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
And he's had everything taken away from him, and you kind of understand where he's coming from as a bad guy. He's sort of like, he's been broken, he's had that bad day, that psychological sort of break. And realistically, who does he want to try and punish at the end of it? He wants to punish Batman, who's a vigilante operating outside of the law, which has caused people to, like the Joker, turn up and be extremely theatrical and over the top about their crimes to sort of, like the escalation speech at the end of Batman Begins is exactly what we get in Dark Knight.
Yeah,
He then wants to punish Gordon, and he then wants to punish himself, doesn't he?
I suppose so.
For the pain that they've. But anyway, go on. What's your funny one?
My other, well, I suppose funny, like it's got to be Johnny Lawrence and the Karate Kid.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, like, it gets to a point where LaRusso's just deliberately winding him up. Like, you know, I think it's partly just because because that's kind of the whole point of Cobra Kai when they brought the TV series back, and it's like it's kind of following on from the events at the end of the first one, rather than, like, it doesn't really take much into account about the sequels. But like, when you sort of see what his life's turned into, and when you get a bit of backstory about the character of Johnny Lawrence and what the sort of stuff that he'd been going through, that kind of got him to where he was in the first movie. There are certain points where you can look at it from his perspective and think, do you know what? Yeah, like, this LaRusso kid's being a prick. You know,
I can sort of see that one. To be fair,
kind of, it goes a little bit beyond retaliating. Yeah, like it goes a little bit beyond that sort of retaliating against a school bully, and it's like, okay, it's, you know, there's some bullying going on your side here.
I've not seen Cobra Kai yet, and it's years since I've seen the Karate Kid. So I take it that they're still sort of antagonistic to each other in Cobra Kai, that they've not suddenly had like a midlife crisis and they're best buds or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hit and miss. It's more like Cobra Kai sort of deals with a more realistic. I say realistic, that's ridiculous, because it's Cobra Kai is basically like if 80s hair metal was a TV show, it would be Cobra Kai. But yeah, it kind of it goes for the more sort of realistic ideas of, like, good and bad. Like, there's less sort of there's less of this black and white stuff going, like spaghetti western sort of carry on, you know.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's much more grey area, and there's faults on both sides and good on both sides, and everybody's redeemable, and like, and there's nobody. Even when, because they bring John Kreese back in the second series. Sorry, spoiler alert. They bring John Kreese back in the second series, who's who is Johnny Lawrence's, like, karate instructor in the first movie. And really nasty guy, but even him, you get this sense of, like, he's been dicked over a bit in his life, and he's just lashing out and taking it out on somebody else. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, I think that's a villain I would say had a point in a way, would be Johnny Lawrence from the Karate Kid.
Fair enough. Do you know, I really need to revisit that film. It's years since I've seen it, and I've heard smashing things about Cobra Kai, mainly from you, but quite a few other folk as well. So I'd be. It will be one of them. I'm useless when it comes to series. It's such a big commitment to watch a series. You can put a film on and it's done in a couple of hours, and then you get on to the next one if you've got time to binge something. But I'm weird with my series, aren't I?
Fair enough. Yeah, we should probably get through these questions because we've got loads of them. We've got one from John. Then, if you could reboot a movie with any actors, with any actors and director, with an unlimited budget, who would it be? What would it be? What film would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a really good question.
So, like, you're rebooting a movie, you can have anyone you want playing the characters and anyone you want directing it.
I would do the Harry Palmer series.
Okay.
Which originally starred Michael Caine.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably get somebody like Charlie Hunnam or Richard Madden, maybe even Colin Farrell, to play Harry Palmer. And I would make them really sort of gritty, dirty, sort of, into the sort of depths of crime and espionage sort of thrillers.
Yeah.
and sort of get back to real sort of basics with them. Because I think there's a real opportunity there for the character. Harry Palmer was obviously a 60s character written by Len Deighton, and the guys that made Bond adapted that and did it obviously with Michael Caine. They did a trilogy of films in the 60s, and then did a revival in the 90s when Michael Caine came back, and they're all pretty good little sort of like thrillers, action movie sort of thing. But I think that would be a really good shout.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I haven't really given this one a lot of thought. I think I'd quite like to remake. I'd quite like to remake Under Siege.
Oh, yeah.
And as much as because I love the movie, like it's I'm not the biggest Steven Seagal fan of like overall, but I love Under Siege. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, with any actors, I'll probably put somebody like Cillian Murphy in it.
And have him play Casey Ryback.
Yeah.
So who's going opposite Cillian Murphy then to play Stranix?
To play Stranix. I would think. I mean, this is it's kind of a cliche answer because they've kind of been opposite each other a couple of times, but I'd go with Tom Hardy.
Hey, no, that could work. That could work. Absolutely.
I think that would be good.
And who's your director then?
See, that one I'd quite like to see David Fincher have a go at.
Yeah, that could be good. That could be good. That I never mentioned the director for mine. I think Matthew Vaughn, who did the Kingsman movies, and he did X-Men First Class.
Yeah.
And he did the recent remake of Man from U.N.C.L.E., so he can handle 60s properties. I reckon he would be quite good. The other one that I was thinking of as well, and this really all depends on the actors' acting chops, because I've only seen them in one film, but it's really just their uncanny looks. But I'd love to see a Dirty Harry prequel set in the early 60s.
Right.
Where Dirty Harry gets promoted from being a beat cop to whatever the next step up is, when he starts going into the higher ranks of the police, and see the case that makes him become Dirty Harry.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting.
And I would love to see Scott Eastwood, which is Clint Eastwood's 35-year-old son, play Dirty Harry, but set it in the 60s and go full-on aesthetic 60s.
Okay.
And then for the director, it's got to be Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, I suppose so.
That's my second pitch.
I think like if we were going to pick somebody, I'd never even thought of Clint Eastwood as a director. Like if we're going to pick somebody to remake Under Siege, I think Eastwood would have a really good crack at that.
He does do well, does Clint Eastwood with action movies? I mean, stuff. Clint Eastwood generally tends to lend himself better to like drama, thriller.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, there are some brilliant action movies that he's done.
I mean, because it would be like, because that was kind of the idea with David Fincher as well. Because obviously he's more drama thriller as well. I'd like to see Under Siege done as like more of a drama thriller, like more psychological, less kind of bouncing around with martial arts. Like more the protagonist and antagonist actually communicating with each other, and trying to fix the hostage situation. Like make it a bit more sinister and a bit darker, I think.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah,
that could be really cool. What's the next question?
So Badger asks, are minions really that bad, or are they evil villains?
See, that's they're cute and they're fluffy and they're lovable and they're called Bob and Dave and Keith and silly things that little fluffy cute things shouldn't be called.
So obviously they're evil.
So they are though, because it's weird, isn't it? Because obviously it's a kids' film. But have you seen the spin-off Minions?
No, I haven't yet. No.
Well, that's hilarious. But it shows you in the opening montage of the film the Minions basically sort of coming into existence,
Yeah.
and their sole purpose for existence is to serve the most evil character of all time.
Yeah.
And it shows a montage of the minion tribe going through history, like they're with T-Rex, and then they're with cavemen, and then they sort of go through, and it gets to about Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah.
And then they sensibly have them go into exile, so that you don't have to have the whole minions looking after Hitler sort of horrible thing.
Yeah.
But it shows that succession, and then brings them out of exile in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And does that, but their goal is to serve the most evil, fiendish, person ever. And then in Despicable Me 3, why do I know so much about this? Is Despicable Me? See, guys, this is me. I'm a film buff, for better or for worse. I will watch anything you put in front of me, and I'll analyze it, and I'll take it in, and it's. But there you go. But in Despicable Me 3, the minions break away from Gru and family because they've decided to turn good.
Yeah.
So they are evil.
I think they're evil. They just
they're evil.
Like, because I've seen Despicable Me. That's about as far as I've gone into that sort of universe. But they just look evil. Like,
they're brilliant.
They just look
They're
horrifyingly malevolent, like
the guy though the guy that directs all those films is the guy that voices them. He's a French actor called Pierre Coffin.
Okay.
And he does all the voices for all of them, and he must have a whale of a time in the like going banana
and the sound studios,
doing all that sort of stuff, and saying all the because they talk, but they talk in broken English, and get words wrong and do all that sort of thing. And there's a lot of like sort of going on as well.
Bill and Ben type stuff. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Flobba-dub-dub.
So Mike says one movie that you love that everyone else tends to hate.
Well, me and Mike both love this movie. It's License to Kill.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Does everybody often tend to hate License to Kill?
It's kind of having a bit of a renaissance at the moment, if you like, because Daniel Craig has brought back Gritty and done all that. But it was the lowest grossing Bond film of the original franchise. Yeah, and it was certainly critically panned at the time.
Yeah,
and it was one of the reasons for the hiatus. That's the obvious one that I love that everyone else hates. I've talked about it before, but Jaws 4.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
I'm just sort of trying to think. People generally tend to love The Room, so I'm just sort of scanning through sort of the things that I've watched. I didn't mind. In fact, I actually really quite enjoyed That's My Boy with Adam Sandler.
Okay.
The one where it's him and Andy Samberg, and he's Andy Samberg's long-lost dad, and tracks him down because he needs him for some sort of thing. And that got absolutely panned. But me and our kid went to see that when it came out in the cinemas and absolutely howled and loved it to the point I bought the DVD and have watched it a couple of times since. Yeah, I think there's a few from me. I'm
gonna get in some trouble for this, I think. Yeah. Film buffs are going to hate me. I really like The Phantom Menace.
Fair enough.
I don't think it's by any means the weakest of the prequel trilogy.
No, that's Revenge of the Sith, surely.
Yeah, I think Revenge of the Sith probably is. I like it. I think it gets a bad rap. I think that people forget that the fight scene with Darth Maul is probably the coolest lightsaber battle in the franchise.
I would agree, to be fair. And Duel of the Fates is a really, really good piece of music, isn't it?
Definitely the best piece of music. Some of the best music in the whole franchise. The pod racing scene's brilliant. The reason why people hate it as much as they do is because the kid that plays Anakin is crap.
He's not terrible, though. He's not great, but he's not terrible.
No. And obviously Jar Jar Binks.
How else would an 8-year-old boy be?
Well, yeah, I suppose so.
If you took any 8-year-old boy any happy-go-lucky 8-year-old boy, which he's supposed to be full of sort of excitement and energy and stuff. And even though he is a slave, he's clearly having a good time. If you took him and put him in the middle of a big grand adventure like that, he's gonna have a whale of a time, isn't he?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, I mean, he's not cracking, but I would say that on the whole, I prefer Jake Lloyd's performance as Anakin Skywalker as an 8-year-old.
Yeah,
rather than Hayden Christensen.
Rather than Hayden Christensen. I think he did get.
Yeah.
I think Christensen got better in Sith. I think his performance in Sith was better than. But he didn't have a lot. Yeah.
I would say Attack of the Clones is probably my favourite of the prequels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's me. That's another one. But a movie that I love that everyone else hates.
It didn't have a lot to work with.
Right.
None of them are scripted particularly well.
No, they're not. Well, George Lucas was largely in charge of the dialogue, wasn't he? And whilst he's a fantastic visionary, sometimes you need other people to put the words to that vision.
Yeah, because it's kind of the litmus test with it was seeing Natalie Portman in it. Because she's amazing, she's an absolutely fantastic actress, but just lacked a lot in Star Wars, and I think that was the sort of test of that, is to see if a really good actor could be really bad in it.
I saw a defense of the sequel trilogy the other day. I don't mind 7 and 9. I'm really not a fan of 8.
Yeah,
but somebody's like, you cannot complain about Princess Leia using the Force to glide through space, or the way she died in Episode 9. Spoiler alert for a 2-year-old film. But you can't complain at that if you're okay with Natalie Portman literally dying of a broken heart in Episode 3.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah,
or did they say dying because she had a bad day or something like that?
Yeah.
But
okay, so we've got one from Chris. How did you come up with the name? What?
Okay, so little story. Me and Phil are both Indiana Jones nuts.
Yeah.
And when we decided that we wanted to have a proper go at doing a podcast, we were like, well, the podcast is going to be about movies, but it's not going to be about a specific movie franchise or a specific movie all the time.
Yeah.
But we want the title of it to be a really, really obscure reference from a movie that we both love. So we batted it about, and it's from Indiana Jones, as I just mentioned, and The Last Crusade. And there's a scene in The Last Crusade where the Nazis capture Indy and Henry Sr., and it's like, oh, well, we need to get Marcus Brody, and Indy's like, the hell you will. He knows every language, and from here to the Sudan, and knows every local custom. He'll blend in, he'll disappear,
you'll never see him again.
Exactly, and does all that, and then when they're later alone, Henry Jones Sr. turns around to his son and says, was that true, what you said about Marcus? And he's like, Dad, come on, you know him. He got lost in his own museum. Yeah. And so there was that. So that's where the title comes from. We thought that it lent in well to the sort of like, we wanted to have our own sort of way of, do we like a film or don't we like a film? Because we didn't just want to go the straight sort of, out of 5 stars or marks out of 10 or Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb type rating. Yeah. So we're like, well, what can we do? And we're like, well, does it go in the museum, as in Marcus Brody's museum, because that's what all the indie artifacts are meant to go to?
Or does it get lost?
Or does it get lost to history? Yeah. So that's how we came up with the name.
Yeah, and it's also where the
you chose.
You chose wisely.
Wisely.
Yeah.
He chose poor.
Here's a shout out to a friend of mine on Twitter, whose name absolutely escapes me. I'm really sorry. I'll give him a shout out on the next one. He's a radio producer who did that recording.
Call you John for now.
Yeah, who did that for us, and it's just awesome. I love it. So yeah, that's obviously the night from the end of Last Crusade.
I love that I've got a prop of that on a shelf behind
me. Yes, brilliant. That's so cool.
That's the cup of a carpenter.
So Edward says, is the Thing's dong made out of orange rock like the rest of him?
Well, of course it is.
Yeah, I would say so.
He's not going to pull down his shorts and then all of a sudden there's just going to be a regular skinned penis there.
Yeah, fairly obvious one. So yes, is the
Disappointed.
answer.
I'm disappointed in you, Ed. That you're such a big movie nerd and such a film buff like me. I would have expected
Yeah.
something really, really challenging and
Laura
do
says,
better.
Laura says, what movie really changed your perspective or outlook on things in life in general?
Oh, that's really difficult. Is that?
I know mine straight off the
That is
bat.
really. Go for it.
Fight Club. It's got to be Fight Club. Like
What perspective did it change for you personally?
it kind of it changed the way that I think about the way that society works, and the whole idea that if you want to completely tear yourself away from that, it is possible to do so. That it's not like, and the whole thing, like the things you own end up owning you. There's a lot of stuff in Fight Club where I think just in terms of like of the way that you sort of the way that I've always thought about life and the having my sort of belief system challenged like that and completely flipped. I think I think that's a lot of people feel that way about Fight Club. I think. Yeah.
For me, I mean, like, there's things like, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life got talked about when we were debating this before, and that's a really, really beautiful piece of cinema. Obviously George Bailey's sort of thinking, well, perhaps the world would be better without me in it, sort of thing, and the message of that film is always, that there'll be so many people's lives you've touched that you won't even realise, and all that sort of thing. And whilst that is a really powerful message, I don't know whether it necessarily turned me around. It's really difficult, is that? Because I love film, obviously, because I wouldn't be doing this otherwise.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of a film that's really spoken to me, that's really made me... And I we're not just doing this off the cuff. I've been racking my brain as long as I've had the question. The one that jumped to mind straight away when she said it, and it sort of had to try and backtrack and think, well, why did that one come to mind, was 12 Angry Men.
Okay.
And I think the reason it just sort of, I wouldn't say it changed anything per se, but it affirmed to me that, sometimes you've got to go against the grain, and you've got to speak up for what's right.
Yeah.
And take action, even if it's an uncomfortable thing to do at times, and that sometimes people aren't always going to be sort of behind you and agree with you, and your beliefs might be sort of in the minority, but if what is right and true, and is it's that sort of thing, isn't it? Because the whole thing of 12 Angry Men is that there's 12 jurors there. Are they going to hang this guy? 11 of them say guilty without really considering the facts, and there's a lot of things that they take into consideration with that, like the guy's race, his background, his his standing in society, all that sort of thing. And then there's the one guy there who's like, no, we've got a man's life in the balance here. If it were any of us, we'd want the 12 people in that room to at least take the opportunity to talk through the case, at least.
Yeah.
And I remember being really, really moved by that as a film. So that was the one that came to mind. But I don't know that it predominantly changed anything on my outlook on anything. I can't think of of anything that's made me sort of change my core beliefs or my values or anything. But that one reaffirmed that it's definitely the right thing to do, to stand up for the little man, or that sort of thing. To get all deep, dark, and wonderful on Lost in His Own Museum. We're in the basement.
Laura, we'll get back to you about that one. Favorite opening scene from a film, but not from a franchise.
Favorite opening scene from a film that isn't a franchise. Ooh, now that's
Memento, I think, is mine.
I'm just trying to think. Favourite opening scene? It's not a franchise.
I would definitely go with Memento for mine because it's just the everything you need to know about the stories in there. Like in the opening
Departed.
credits. Oh, The Departed, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, The Departed. I had to think about that then. No, Memento it's a good shout, is that? Because like you say, it really sort of, it whets your appetite.
Yeah.
It gives you everything you need, but it gives you nothing at all.
Yeah. There's that one in Seven Psychopaths. I think there's one of mine.
I didn't care for that, you know.
Did you not? No.
No.
What I mean, the opening though, like the opening scene, because it's the two gangsters talking on the bridge, and then you see the assassin slowly walking up behind him, and it's just a guy walking across the bridge, and then as he gets slowly more into focus, and he just like pops them both mid sentence. And I remember watching that and thinking, yes, this is brilliant already. Like.
Yeah, do you know Pulp Fiction's another shout as well? We start in the cafe, don't we? And obviously work backwards from there. But I suppose those sort of films that do the whole, you know, ending first and then work backwards.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously Memento. That was pretty much the whole thing with Memento.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the opening scene in Departed though's really good because you don't see anybody, and all it is Jack Nicholson's voiceover, and then a stand-in character that's supposed to be young Jack, and then a real young kid that's supposed to be young Matt Damon, and sort of sets up the whole. So then when you join the film, you're like, right. Yeah. I really, really liked that as an opening scene. But there's so many. I've seen so many films, and it's sort of like you think, right, well, what sticks with you? But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
those two.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say just Departed and Pulp Fiction are my shouts.
Okay. I'd go with Seven Psychopaths and Memento, and then we've got all the bases covered pretty much. Okay, so final question, which is Ruben's big question. Ruben's got a podcast of his own. Him and his brother Rich do one called Going Jack, which you should check out. It's brilliant. And by the time...
It is a really good podcast.
Yeah, it's great, yeah. But by the time this one's out, there'll be a new episode of that out as well. So might
Indeed, I think they're on episode 6 or 7, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah,
they're a few ahead of us.
Think, yeah. So Ruben says, what's your most memorable movie food moment?
Movie food moment?
So that's a moment with food in the movie rather than like eating food while watching a movie. I did clarify that.
Just trying to think. No, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah.
And that the food is only really a setup for the scene. But what do you want? Dry white toast. Do you want butter or jam on that? No. Dry. Yeah. And what about you? 4 fried chickens and a Coke. You want chicken wings or chicken legs?
4 fried chickens. I was thinking of one from the Blue Brothers. I've got a few for this because I love the bit from Pulp Fiction with the burgers. That's just fantastic. It's so funny. Just the way that Samuel L. Jackson is so horrifying with these guys. Can I just take a sip of your beverage just to wash down this burger that I've just... And it's like, he's about to kill these guys. You know what I mean? The bit in the Boondock Saints with the mafia boss eating the sandwich is brilliant because it's like have you seen the Boondock Saints, right?
I haven't, mate. No, I'm ashamed to say I haven't seen it.
It's a scene with the Italian guy that's helping because it's these two Irish guys that are going around murdering mafiosos in Boston, and there's this Italian guy who's helping them out who's like a minor sort of mafia associate, and he goes to this sort of head mafioso, and his henchman is there as well, who's played by Ron Jeremy, which is just surreal. It's the weirdest thing in the world. And this guy's got this sandwich on the bench, and he's on the phone to someone. You can't really tell who it is. And so the Italian guy and Ron Jeremy are having this little back and forth, taking the mick out of each other. And then suddenly this mafia boss screams down the phone at this guy and like threatens to kill him. And then he slams the phone down after like screaming and swearing on, and he just picks up the sandwich off the table and he says, I shouldn't have done that. You're not supposed to tell a guy you're going to kill him no more. And he like opens the sandwich and goes, it's taking all the fun out of the job. And it's timed absolutely perfectly. It's a beautiful scene. But there's that one, and brilliant. Then the bit in the restaurant in the Blues Brothers, where they're going to get Mr. Fabulous. Yeah. And when he like shuffles over to the next table, and, how much for the women? Sell them to me. Sell me your children.
Your women. Sell them.
I want to
how
buy
much
them.
for the little girl?
It's just like one of the funniest things I've seen in my life.
We'd like to be moved. Those gentlemen are offensive. Did they say something to you? No, they're offensive. Smelling. They smell bad. If you don't rejoin the band, Elwood and I are going to come here for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of the week. Come on, guys. The soup's $10.
The soup is fucking $10. And, like, it just doesn't get any better than the Blues Brothers. Like, it's yeah.
It's so quotable.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but when Ruben put that question through, that was the scene that came to mind, though, was the 4 fried chickens and a Coke.
Yeah. Yeah, which was, incidentally, that's what we were going to call this podcast. For a while.
It was actually.
That was an idea that was thrown around. We were gonna name it 4 fried chickens and a Coke. And on that note, so that's everybody's questions answered. Hope everybody's happy with those answers. Certainly had a lot of fun talking about them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite fun to do more questions.
Yeah,
it's been brilliant. Thanks for writing in.
Yeah. So. Hit us both up on Twitter for any others, or on Facebook if you've got us on Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at Twig Says, TWIGSAYS.
And I am at JT_@the movies.
So give us a shout on Twitter with any other questions that you've got and you want us to answer on the podcast. We'll be back with you with another episode in a couple of weeks. So thank you very much for listening. And this has been episode 3. So any feedback or anything about how we're doing, about what things you like about the podcast, anything you don't like about it, feel free to give us a shout. And
absolutely.
Yeah,
and remember to stay indoors.
And remain indoors and have a pleasant apocalypse.
Absolutely. Take very good care, folks.
See you later.